Hello everybody, this is Cosmic Agency, I am Gosha, and hey, no I haven't forgotten about the series of mini topics. I have had many topics there put away to be included in this mini series of mini topics, but as you know, in the past year there was always more important things to do and more important videos to make. And hello to all the new subscribers, and just to let you know what the mini topics are about, this is basically just excerpts, not the whole essay on the specific topic, just short excerpts of conversations that I had or we had with Robert, with our friends from the orbit. And these are the topics or excerpts of conversations that didn't make it into the longer videos because maybe it's just too short, or it was just a random conversation that didn't end up being a separate topic for the video. But I still want to share these bits and pieces because they are curious and totally random, okay? These are the conversations from the past years, the last 3 years or so, and let's go because we have quite a few here to go through. Okay, so the first question that I had on my mind was about the soul and the self-awareness. And I'll be reading the conversations, but I will also be commenting on what the conversation is about. So I didn't understand exactly, or I wasn't sure. I still am not sure exactly if the soul equals self-awareness. Because, okay, if the reptiles, for example, or the negative beings, negative reptiles that we said had no connection to source, but they are self-aware, doesn't mean that they have a soul. So you can be self-aware but without a soul, or when you have a soul, that's automatically self-awareness. Self-awareness equals soul. So I was talking here to Yaski about this, and I say, does soul equal self-awareness? Because if so, well, the reptilians are self-aware, regressives as well. But it was said they don't have a soul or connection to source, which would mean that the self-awareness does not equal soul. And then Yaski just responded this. She said, it is heavily related, yet it's not entirely that. A soul is source. Well, then I say, well, then reptiles are self-aware, but with no soul, correct? And then she says this, as with every species, some more than others, because their way of seeing reality is different. For example, with little to no empathy. Their awareness approach contrasts with the one of Lyrians. But even though they may appear to be soulless, they simply approach source in a different way. This, besides the fact that some species of reptiles are empathetic and emotional, like the alpha dracos. But then I say, okay, but in general, self-awareness does not equal soul then, right? Because I imagine there are degrees of self-awareness, because Matrix people seem to be self-aware as well, or they emulate being that. And Yaski says here in general, well, the truth we must face here is that everything is source. Therefore, everything has a connection to it. The question is how, and how directly. For example, Illyrian is a direct manifestation of the idea of source about being someone in the material world. Yet a car, which is also source, is a creation spawning from the mind of Illyrian. So it's a secondary creation. Anyway, it was just a short chat. That's it. I don't have more. These excerpts from these short chats, well, they are also meant to stimulate you. Like, what do you think? Self-awareness equals soul? Soul, no self-awareness? Soul, source? These are the kinds of topics that, yeah, that would be great to deepen again with Yaski perhaps at some point. Well, now I have a question here about the Elohi. The Elohi are the Pleiadian race from Asterope, from what I remember, the star Asterope. And they were very involved with Earth in the past. These are not Elohim. Elohim, that's a separate thing. Actually, this is a very confusing subject because in space, well, the Elohi, that's a Pleiadian race. But then the Elohim, many different races can be viewed as Elohim, as those who came from the sky, etc. So even the reptiles could be Elohim, or the Pleiadians could be the Elohim, because it's like a general term. That's how they understand it. But then Elohi, that's a specific race, but it's all kind of related at the same time. So it's confusing. But anyway, I had a question about the Elohi because I was wondering why they are not here anymore right now. And remember, that was about 3 years ago, the conversation. I said, why aren't they in the orbit? Aren't they no longer interested in humanity? But they were here before, very active. So why are they absent in this very important, interesting period in the human history? Or maybe they do not consider it interesting after so many previous resets. And here I'm talking to Athena, and she responds this. In fact, officially, I remember that was about 3 years ago, there are no M45 ships other than the Taygeta, which was their main vessel. Only ships from other Pleiadian races that are present unofficially. There are always unofficial groups coming and going as well. And they are present in small numbers, just monitoring their starseeds like everyone else. They do not make themselves very known, or not very much. She's talking about other Pleiadian races coming and going. But the Alcyone Council has determined that the legal representative of the Pleiades was Alenim. Alenim, who was the queen of Taygeta, she was here in Toleka. Others come and go, and it's unknown when they return. They only report, like air traffic. They only observe, and they do not interfere, except through their star seeds. And here I'm asking, but this wouldn't mean that if a Pleiadian race wanted to get more involved, they couldn't, would it? Athena says they could, but at the moment they don't see it as necessary. An example of this is Engan, who is another Pleiadian race, a militarily very strong race that is ready to take action if needed, for example, to support Taygeta should an incident occur. However, they are not here because their military assistance is not required at the moment, given the strong presence of the Urma here, who are with us, escorting at all times. They are honoring the cooperation and alliance agreements with both Alcyone M45 and Taygeta specifically. By the way, here it is mentioned Engans would step in if their military assistance was required, if an incident occurred. So I'm wondering what's happening in space right now, if Engans are active, if they are here helping, if there were any incidents. I have no idea what went on last year. Now here, let's go on to the next one. This is the mini topics, by the way. We just going through different random topics very fast. Okay, now here, this is an interesting question because, okay, it is a bit longer, and it is with Athena. I'm thinking about densities because it was said always that this is a mental state and it is not a place. You can be of 3D frequency outside Earth and you can be of 5D and higher inside Earth. So I was wondering about the reptiles because it was said that they cannot go outside because their frequency is different. But who cares outside? I mean, it was said that this is not about the place, but about the mental state. So you take the Earth 3D or whatever state you have and you go outside because it's not about the place, right? So I'm asking about that. This is the question I have. That these don't exist and are just mental states, right? It doesn't depend on where you are. You bring your D with you. So why can't the reptilians be on Venus, for example, or anywhere else in their whole bodies? And why do they have to go adjusting their frequencies or work there through human suits? Places outside of Earth are not any special density. You are the one who generates the density. So the reptilians could be there and anywhere. Why can't they? The same on Mars. Those regressive beings operate there without any problems in their bodies. Okay, so Athena says this. Because there is also something called the collective unconscious that generates an average frequency for the place in question. And if it doesn't coincide with that of an entity or a person, they will have problems because their own mentality and body are used to being within a different frequency soup. I'm asking, what kind of problems would that cause them? They would just be uncomfortable, right? Like starseeds are on Earth. Although I understand that if you are of the highest frequency, you will integrate the lower ones. The reverse could be more difficult. Athena says, health problems, what's called ET sickness, manifest as energetic problems that even include cancers and autoimmune issues. Mentally, it can induce depression or even psychotic tendencies in the case of a low vibration being who enters a soup of frequencies higher than their own. So I'm saying, oh wow, so it works like it does for the starseeds here. The reverse also. Athena says, the starseeds are the first to feel the energetic problems caused by being in a place that isn't of their vibration. I say, okay, but I understood that the reptiles couldn't function there at all, that they don't arrive, that they need human portals through which to operate there in higher frequencies. So how do the ones on Mars work then? But for some reason at that time, like I was understanding that they can't even be there because it's like the place repels them because of the frequency mismatch. But then if the place isn't the frequency but your mental state, well then why, no? And then Athena said, for me, the reason they cannot leave Earth normally is because of the physical barrier around Earth. That's why they use portals, not so much because they can't be there. And then, of course, when you're thinking about it, of course they can't be there because if they are using portals, well, then they are there. Anyways, there are types of conversations that sometimes I'm having with them, going back and forth on these different silly issues. Like an idea gets to my head, and we're talking. Anyway, so she says that's why they use portals. So not because they cannot be there. And I say, and those on Mars, they've already created such a negative environment there that it's convenient for them to live there, yes? So even the collective frequency is harmonious to them. And Athena says, yes, Mars generally does have a heavy, bad vibe atmosphere. It's a low frequency place. And then Robert says, and could we perceive that? Athena says, in my opinion, yes, because when you go to a place like Mars, your body and senses become immersed in that frequency, making you more of it, not without consequences to your health, especially your mental health, of course. It depends on Athena continues, it depends on each person's mindset, that is, also on what they are used to. For example, we Svarus can access many different frequencies because we've traveled a lot, unlike someone who never leaves their place of origin. Strictly speaking, from a frequency perspective, reptiles can't exist at higher frequencies, but only as long as each remains in its own realm. Because if you put a reptile and one of us in the same place, in the same space, that dominant frequency could cause the vibrations to balance out enough. It will depend on each person's mental strength, especially that of positive people. That's all. I don't know how this conversation ended, but yeah, because it was also said, I do remember at the very, 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 very beginning, I think, that when they are traveling, those with the secret space program and reptiles, they do have some kind of a device that also keeps their frequency adjusted, no more. Just like it was also said that when the step downs come here, they have the special belts and something in the belts that keep their frequency higher. But then, of course, Yasi and Athena and the Swarunians kind of expressed that that's kind of deterministic, that's Taygetan's idea of maintaining their frequency while it is all in your mind. Because as we know, the Swarunians are very much mental, and it's all in your mind. Okay, now this is a question about the water of Tiamat falling to earth as floods. I had a question about this because for some reason I also wanted to confirm that the water from Tiamat, when it exploded, came as rain and not as ice or rocks. For some reason, I don't know if I'm switching timelines, maybe it's past some points. Sometimes I remember different things. So I remembered that I think it was mentioned that the water came as ice rocks to earth, not as rain. So I am here with talking to Athena, wanting to clarify this, and I say, about the waters from Tiamat, Mari said that water doesn't freeze in space like it is said on Earth, and that the water came as rain. But I think we said before that it arrived as ice rocks. It just seemed to me. And Athena says, it can freeze if other forces act upon it, like radiation, or very, very slowly, since space isn't a perfect vacuum. So there is heat transfer, which eventually causes freezing. Space isn't empty. The water didn't arrive frozen from Tiamat to Earth. It didn't. That's why it rained. But nowadays, that water that was there, that stayed there, is frozen in the asteroid belt. So I'm asking, okay, so it froze there in space because of radiation? Athena said, because space isn't a vacuum. It's a liquid at a high existential frequency. There is heat transfer, but it's slow. Not like in the movies. It's very slow. So I say, okay, so at some point that water was frozen. Got frozen. And then she confirms, no, but from the Tiamat to Earth back then, no, it didn't freeze. It was too fast. Because it didn't take long to fall to Earth, only a few years perhaps. That's difficult to calculate. With so much water together, it maintains its temperature much longer than if it were just a few drops. And Robert is asking, and the Federation didn't record that destructive event? Athena says, yes, but their records aren't reliable. And I say, but how could water be falling? My types of questions. How could water be falling if it was liquid, in the liquid form in space? Where would it fall? There's no up and down. Like, where is it falling? There's no gravity. It was very far from Earth and its magnetic fields. Athena says, that's not how it works. Gravitational fields extend very far. First, the sun itself attracts it, and then the water is captured by Earth since it's closer. The same happens with Venus and Mercury. The very gravitational energy dynamics of the solar system attracted the water to large objects. And Robert says, and Mars, the only difference is that it didn't retain it, just like Mercury. Athena says, yes, although Mars has a lot of water underground. The same goes for Earth and Venus. Their largest seas are underground. And then I say, and wouldn't the water dissipate in space? What holds it together in a wave? Athena, water naturally clumps together. The loose water droplets themselves come together. They do not separate. So yes, it was confirmed that the water came as rain. That's it for this mini topic. Now I have three, yes, very short. Okay, well, 3 mini topics, so let's continue. Now this one is about photos. I was actually asking if in Taygeta they use photos and cameras and videos. Do they take photos in Taygeta? And Athena, he responds, yes, each in their own way, but yes. But I say, photos like here, like exactly the same? And she says, yes, of course. And then I say, okay, but aren't they like more advanced, like moving images or something? Wouldn't that be a video though? And then Athena says, yes, but that varies greatly. And the problem is the format holographic isn't compatible with the digital. And then I say, but what are these photographs like? How do you take photos in Taygeta? And Athena says, it's like there on Earth. And also there are 3D and zoom versions. You touch them and the image expands in 3D, or normal ones. So I say, okay, so you don't seem like you see our technology here is very primitive, no? And she says, yes, no, I do not. There is still equivalent of that here. They just need to, the Earth people, they just need to advance more in detail and quality. I was also asking if they print them. And Athena says, yes, it's possible, but it's not very usual. They are preserved in memories, like in frames, for example. But yes, they can be printed too. And then I was saying, well, that would be fun if actually a sound could be added to the photo or to the scene, just for a few seconds, or a smell. Oh, the smell would be good. The smell and the sound. You touch the button and the smell, and you somehow recorded the smell of the scene. And Athena says, some of them do have the sound, not all of them. It depends on the format. No smells. They don't have smells. Okay, and now we go to the topic of instruments. And here Anneka was talking about pianos. Because as you know, they do have pianos there and other instruments like violins. Because intercultural exchanges and all that, these are all ideas shared among cultures. But there are some differences in piano. And here Anneka is saying, regarding the fact that many things are found on Earth and other planets, pianos and violins, I just wanted to clarify that yes, they are different, but still recognizable as pianos and violins. On a human piano, there are white and black keys grouped in a recurring pattern, 2-3, 2-3. On a Taygetan piano, there are only keys of the same color. But the function of the black key is due to the fact that some are protruding and others are further in, like a stepped arrangement. And this is more comfortable for the hand than the human model. And on the Taygetan piano, there are 2 or even 3 levels of keys. And the keyboard is curved. Different, but recognizable as piano. And there are all sorts of trumpets and other brass instruments. I think you know that already. The Urmas are very fond of them because drums and percussions instruments are very diverse and constant in practically all cultures, Lyrian or not Lyrian. And other instruments, Anneka says, as one might expect, are not found on Earth. For example, there is one water instrument found in many cultures where water is forced under pressure through various tubes and resonating parts, and that creates a sound, like an organ with internal drums. And the sound is very unique and soothing, and that simply doesn't exist on Earth, she says. That will be super, 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 super interesting to see that instrument, or to hear the sound. Okay, the last topic here, I was talking to Athena, and it seemed to me that if you remember your past lives and you die, well, reverse, if you die and then you remember your past life, well, wouldn't that be curious now to appear to the people that you knew as that person that you were but died, and like appear and say, hi, this is me. Yeah, I was your son. Look at me now, a different face and just different person, no? Unless you are reborn, not in a sequential, linear perspective, right? Then you don't meet the same people. But if you die and your family and your friends are still there, wouldn't that be kind of interesting to appear and say, hello, this is me, I'm reborn? Well, so I asked Athena if they do that. I mean, I don't know. From my perspective, I find it curious. I would do it just for fun. Athena says that they don't usually do that. However, every person and case is different. I only know one who has done it, she says, as far as I know. Of course, there are many more. Let's just say it's not common, and Urma are the same. And then I say, but if they have clear memories of their past life, wouldn't it be interesting to do that? That is, of course, if their reincarnation was linear. She says, but it's not something common, which I find curious. I said, why not? And then she says, it's assumed that many Taygetans die and return in another body to continue what they were doing. But perhaps because it's not always linear, that's why it's not common. And then I say, well, for me it would be interesting to do that. And she says, yes and no, because sometimes what you want is to transcend those people. It depends on each person. There is no rule, of course. When they are born, they are different people, many times with different new preferences, just with those memories. However, many times they wish to start from scratch again. Not everyone, but that's the tendency. And then I say, yes, but they remember their friends and they could be still there. Wouldn't it be interesting to say, hello, it's me? And Athena says, if there are reasons for that, yes. But sometimes you want to forget those other people, even family. If some do it, it doesn't mean everyone does. I do see the point in starting over, without the same faces from the past lives. And then I say, and do they know where their grave is and everything? Like, do they go to see it? She says, again, I can't know all these details, but I imagine so. But I wouldn't go to see my grave, even if I knew where it was. And then Roberts asks, but there aren't any cemeteries in Taygeta, right? There usually aren't. They don't have cemeteries. Now, well, they would usually bury their body somewhere, maybe in a natural place, something like that. But it is curious because that she said that they usually like to start over and forget the previous faces and sometimes even their family members, because it is also understood that many times we repeat, right? With the soul family, we are always attracted to the same people, to the same partners, to the same the couples keep meeting each other. They keep looking for each other. The family members also. It was even said that the animals many times look for you again, and you for them. So it is also interesting that she said that many times it can be the opposite, that you want to die, and you want to pass on, and you want to forget, and you don't go to visit. But for me, it's not just like about visiting because I will have some kind of attachment or I want, no, it's just for fun, like just pure fun. It would be pure fun. Like I would love for, I don't know who, my dad, to appear now as someone else and say, hi, Gosha, this is me, as a young man somewhere, for example, from Turkey, and says, I was your dad. I am Marek Duszak. I was your dad. I remember everything. That would be super cool. So it's because of that curiosity. But perhaps this is something already so established in their reality, the past lives and all that. It's a totally different dynamic and a way of looking at reality of past lives, etc. So anyway, this is very curious. That's all I have. Of course, I have many more. I have to look at the files, and we continue. We continue with more videos. Now I'm gonna have to, I think, go to the Space Academy. I have a lot of work there all the time because I'm also doing this in French and with my mom, and gluing the audio files there takes a lot of time. to do that, but I don't know, there's something in me that tells me that I have to do it, and that these languages have to be covered, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction to do it. So anyway, thank you very much. I think before I go to the Space Academy, I'm going to publish one more video, short video, personal video, as sort of a summary of 2025. How am I now? Let's summarize the 2025. How am I after the 1 year of absence of the communication, even though we talked about it briefly in our tertulia with Robert, but maybe not everybody watched that. So I'm going to mention some of that, and then I'll jump to the Space Academy after that. Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to record this now in Spanish. I really hate doing this in both languages. I like doing it for the first time, and then if I have to repeat, it's very draining because I have to repeat in another language. But anyway, I've been doing this for 7-8 years, so it's okay. I'm used to it. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you soon.